Yes. So, good afternoon. I'm Pauline Weddell from Learn to Grow, and I'm joined today by Angie.Cameron, who is a psychotherapist, a mindful compassion coach, and a workplace trainer. And Angie is also managing director at Direction. So, welcome, Angie, and thanks for joining me today.
A pleasure, a total pleasure.
Great. So today was really just to talk to you because I know you've been doing a lot around resilience and to get your input and your thoughts on resilience. So I'm going to dive right in there because I know you're a busy lady. But I'm going to kick off with my first question. So I guess simply put, what is resilience?
So it's you know, it's interesting how people differentiate it, Pauline, but the actual Oxford Dictionary says it's about really kind of the process of adapting well against real stresses, adversity and trauma. But I'll tell you, I love, I don't know if you've heard of Elizabeth Edwards' version of it. She's a writer and author, and she says, and I think this is particularly poignant for just now, resilience is accepting your new reality, even if it's less good than the one before, and you can fight it, you can do nothing but scream about it, what you've lost, or you can accept it. So that's the courage there.
Yeah.
And try to put something together that's good. So it's about that adjusting and recovering quickly. And I don't think it's just about putting something together good. I think it's about putting something together that's amazing and great, actually.
Absolutely. And what a great way to put it. Those words really resonate, and I think even more so just now with a lot of people.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
That's great. One of the things I get asked a lot, and I don't know if about you, is people ask, are we all born, are people all got the same levels of resilience? What's your take on that?
It's a question I'm actually asked a lot in my training as well, Pauline, so I'm not surprised you're asked it as well. I think it's an interesting, but I actually come more from the psychology and psychotherapy background that I think it's this nurture-nature debate.
Yeah.
I think we can get a kick start in that nature. However, I absolutely believe wholeheartedly that we can fundamentally develop and grow to be really robust, courageous, resilient people.
Yeah.
With the right skills, the right knowledge, and the right people around us, absolutely we can nurture that.
Absolutely. And I would agree. I think, you know, that's why I asked you, because I know you do a lot of training and coaching and development around this resilience. And likewise, we do a lot. And it's fantastic when you see people who come who think, I don't have this. And then after coaching or some training or a mixture of both, they suddenly find themselves becoming more resilient and developing. I always say it's like a muscle, isn't it? The more you practice it, the more you focus on it, the stronger it becomes, that resilience.
That's right. And it becomes so strong, Pauline, that actually it turns up when we least expect it. Yeah. When we're really got, you know, the tsunami waves thrown at us, and actually suddenly we've got these resources in us. So it's a gradual process. It's not just something that's sudden or just happens on a one-day training course. It's that process that you and I go through with individuals and groups of really building up those resources to make them sturdy, make them habitual, and to build that muscle so they have the strength and robustness when the time is crucial.
Absolutely. And so I guess it's no surprise that, you know, organizations are screaming out for these resilient, I don't think it's just leaders. I think that they're screaming out for their employees to be resilient. So, you know, again, why do you think organizations want resilient leaders at the helm now?
It's a good question. And I also agree with what you're saying. It's not just about the leaders. It's the whole teams as well. It's the individuals, it's the smaller triads of group, and it's the bigger picture of the organization. I think one of the things for me is about taking courage. It's really about taking courage to make decisions, because if we personalize things, if we're too sensitive, if we're not as robust enough, we're not going to have to make those tough decisions that we should actually, as managers, as leaders, within an organisation. But as long as we make the tough decisions, not just in a thoughtful way, but actually a really compassionate way.
Yeah.
I think the other thing for me is your question about, you know, why do organisations want resilient leaders? It's also to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
It's not just to have that enclosed focus on an individual or even the group. It's about the wider scope of the organisation, the implications to the people, the ripple effect to the customers, to the clients, to the future. And it's to see that bigger picture. Yeah. And by doing that, what we do is embrace the longer view of the organisation. So yes, it's about the now, but it's also having that the now, the short term, the middle, and the what's this going to look like in 2 or 3 years' time. We might need to adapt again even next week. We might it might be next month. It might be even just before Christmas. It might be spring. But the ripple effect of decisions now and the robustness of individuals and teams and the leaders. And I think really, whether it's you and I or other leaders out there that are there guiding, supporting, mentoring, coaching people, they're big role models, more than even sometimes the said words, Pauline. I think the unsaid things that can be really powerful. And I think that's why it's really important that we do, all organisations, no matter what size it is, a small business to a larger business, have really resilient leaders.
Absolutely. And you touched on a really important point there, because sometimes people think resilience is a hard skill. You know, when the word, it sounds quite, you know, hard, but you touched on a bit there about with compassion and with thought. And I think that is really important. And with your psychotherapist hat on, what do you think about that, Angie?
So there's two things. I mean, I'm being a mindful compassion coach as well. And actually, my calling is much more around compassionate leadership. Yeah. And I was at a conference, it was just a few weeks ago, and it was all about compassionate leadership. And actually, leaders throughout the world, right from India to America, the UK, France, everywhere, are now saying that this is compassion is the number one skill, ability, a way of being with other people, because without it, there's going to be, you know, resilience in itself is going to be limited. Yeah. And we're not going to be able to lead the people with that strength and courage if we cannot be really compassionate to them and also compassionate to ourselves.
Yes. Yeah, good. No, and I think it's good advice. It is kind of that balance between the hard and what's often perceived as that softer piece working in harmony together. So, Angie, if I was to ask you to give me your top 3 tips on improving or growing resilience, what would you say?
So I think it's interesting because you kind of lead on to those questions of hard and soft, and I don't think there are hard and soft skills anymore, and I'm sure you agree with me, Pauline, because actually for the skills like compassion and empathy, they're really hard if they're not in us. And I wasn't born empathic. Yeah. I took many years to develop that, and that was really hard on me. It was really difficult. It was tough. And one of the hardest things, it doesn't matter whether it's individual clients that come in and see me, whether it's groups and organizations that I'm training with, self-care, when it comes to self-care, we put ourselves, you know, 7, 8 down the list, and that's if we're lucky. Yeah. More often than not, it's somewhere like number 11 and 12. It's the work first, it's the kids first, it's the money, it's the earning, it's this, it's the partner, it's everybody else, it's our staff, it's our team. Everybody else is first and foremost before us. And for me, 26 years doing this job, I think self-care is the most challenging thing that people can think about for themselves. And we're not just talking about having an early night or having a bath, but we're also talking about that. Yeah. We're talking about a real robust, sometimes routine, about physical self-care, about health, about the way we speak to ourselves, about the way that we support and encourage ourselves. So absolutely, self-care is my number one.
I'm applauding that. Well done. Yeah.
And I think intellectually, people go, yeah, I do that. They might do, you know, certain things and go and play golf or whatever it is. But when it comes to the way they speak to themselves and the way they support themselves, it's about getting in the front line, thinking you are the best football team in the world and jeering yourself on. Because again, it comes back to that role model, Pauline.
Yep.
We as leaders are that role model, and even without speaking about it, when our team and staff see us do that, they will follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's my number one.
That's one done.
Number two is definitely about valuing and trusting your team for me. When people, there's something about, so there's a kind of trusting your team on a practical basis of delegating, involving, including people, but really acknowledging people, recognizing what they've done, because, you know, the brain goes, neuroscience says, the brain goes, we pick up the one not so good thing about somebody or our day rather than the 9 great things. So the great things, you know, it's like Teflon. That's how our mind sticks to it. Where the other one is like Velcro. We cling on to the negative and say, oh, Jimmy or Mary or whoever else has done this. But actually, when we acknowledge and really value people, because on a very deep unconscious level, every single one of us want to feel special. And we want to treated with that regard and feeling valued within that. And it's really important, by even whether it's giving a piece of work to your staff and just trusting them with it, or turn around and say, you know, it might have not been what I exactly wanted as a manager and leader, but you've done a great job and I've seen that you really tried. I really appreciate that. Thanks so much. And that's more than just a thank you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So that's my second one.
That's 2 done. Yeah.
So the third one for me is, I talked it for growing resilience within ourselves and the people around us, is about opening the channels of communication. With very good intention. I think managers and leaders just now don't always tell the whole story. And I think there are times, business decisions, they don't need to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
I think with good intention, some people, managers and leaders, trying to protect people, try to do the right thing. However, when their staff and their team feel shut out, or they're not told, they make assumptions, Pauline, they come to conclusions their own selves, and they experience a lot of anxiety and uncertainty. And that themselves, that unknown place, a lot of people find it difficult to hold, that they will move on or they'll pull back from the organization, they'll withdraw. But see, when you include people and you tell them in that leadership way of being that role model, include them, involve them in that, they'll feel regarded, they'll feel respected, and they'll want to go that extra mile, they'll feel loyal, they'll want to, you know, they'll feel more motivated to do something for a leader, and that in turn affects the bigger picture of the organization and therefore the customer and client base, whoever they're serving. I think that is really, really important. And just the last thing there, I think also it's really important, by trusting and valuing our staff, that we're allowing them to trust them enough to see if they can show up with that adversity, with that challenge, with that difficulty. We can't go around protecting them. It's about guiding, mentoring, coaching them in the right way, that we're also giving them a lot of trust within that too.
Absolutely. And I think as well, people want to be empowered. I think that's, you know, people want to have that bit of empowerment, as you say, to get on, to give it their best shot, and then, you know, to get that support or feedback from their manager. So they are 3 absolutely brilliant tips. I will be taking some of those and learning from them myself. Absolutely.
I think the thing is, though, Pauline, is that, you know, I think a lot of the other resilience tips I could think of were very strategic. So very much quite heady thinking ones. But I think these longer term and the short term really serve us well as leaders and managers, but also serve our people well as leaders and managers in the longer term.
And Angie, that's why I knew you were the person to talk to, because you wouldn't come with just the textbook answers. You've really come with some thoughts, words of wisdom and ideas and suggestions that really we all can apply, and we can all, it might require a bit of thought, but actually if we all do one little thing differently, we can increase that level of resilience within us all, in us all. So that's great. So thank you very much for that today. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you again soon, hopefully.
Thanks, Pauline.
Thank you.